episode somehow in the whole thing.
Or we just forgot them. We're getting a little older.
Yeah, that's always a thing too. You just be slipping the memory there. Let me see.
I did check 5 of my hives today that I was a little bit concerned about, and all 5 were looking good. So that was a good sign for
You know,
halfway through winter.
it's kind of weird when you say that, because the one that I put that patty on was one that I was kind of concerned about. It was the first colony that Chris brought that screen, the bottom board, right? The oil tray bottom board, and we tried it on there.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's been a small colony ever since we did that, but it's still hanging in there.
Still hanging in there. Yep.
Still doing his thing. And then I've had bigger ones that it's like, oh, this will make it no problem. And they didn't, right? So
yeah, you never know.
What is a spirulina patty? So spirulina, I guess, is some sort of
beneficial algae.
Yes, an algae, right? So, and it turns the patty kind of dark green, almost black looking by the video last night, and makes it real sticky. But spirulina is not really cheap. I think he said if he buys it from Walmart.com, it's like $7 a pound. So if you figure if you're doing a 40-pound batch, of pollen sub, you're looking to have to buy at least 10 pounds, 10, 12 pounds to make patties. Yeah, the pickle patty. Green one. And he said it's worked well for him, but he's not telling everybody to go out and do it, but it's supposed to work good.
Too expensive for me.
Well, when I look at, I know Cayman did a green patty that was made out of seaweed like 2 or 3 years ago. He was doing it.
Yeah, I remember that.
I tried a box of that stuff, a little 10-pound box of it, and I didn't have much luck with it either. And it was expensive, the patties. I don't remember the company who sold it, but it was expensive, and I didn't have much luck with it.
And I'm pretty sure that's the same thing that Cayman said, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a couple years since I've seen the videos, but it was one of those things where he was like, well, I just don't know of anything they looked for in it that didn't do real good for him.
Yeah.
So this may or may not be the same thing.
It I don't know. It rocked up. It was hard when you put it on there. It wasn't a nice, soft, pliable patty, and the bees didn't go to it like I wanted them to go to it. And within 2 or 3 weeks of them not touching it, I was like, all it's doing is staining my frames green, And
well, yeah, that's what Tom said last night. Is everything that patty touches turns green.
Oh yeah. I remember shit wasn't cheap, man. I mean, a box of it was like $70 for a little box.
Yeah.
Well, you think too that the wax, any wax that you render off of it too, is going to end up making it real dark.
Yeah, it turned his hands green.
Yeah.
They should make it blue so they call it the Smurf substitute.
And small hive beetles were still attracted to it. So that's probably because of the protein level. And you see, Robert says Tom has never tried the Apis Biologics Biocontrol. I'm a big fan of the Apis product.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I've had pretty good luck with it. But hey, everybody's gonna have a different experience.
The only one here where you are.
Let me see.
I've never used a patty of any kind.
You've never used a pollen patty of any kind?
Nope.
When does you guys' pollen really start flowing down there? Is it about this time? A little bit later?
Saying that same
On the
thing.
warmer days, we have a little
Okay, a little
coming
bit.
in.
Okay.
Yesterday, actually, the sun was shining when I went through my bee yard.
Mhm.
I could see a little pollen going in.
Well, today mine were actually on the tube and on the liquid feeder, which surprised me because that I had filled the liquid up. I put 10 gallons out. I mean, it's been a few days before the temperature really dropped. I was really worried that it was going to freeze up in the tote when it got to the 20s, but it didn't freeze. And today they were a little few bees on it, not like a summer, but they were out there getting some.
Okay.
But it's, I think if this cold snap will go away, it's going to start ramping up here pretty quick. Let's see. Melanie says they've been bringing in pollen in North Florida for 2 weeks. So it's coming. It'll be here soon, the next few weeks. Did you get to reverse your boxes yet, Joey?
Actually, today I did that, but I went through 4 or 5 of them, 4 of them, and only one needed rotating, so I just stopped. I actually made a video on it, so got a
You
little
put it out already?
It probably go out Saturday, but
Okay.
I tell you, usually this time of year, actually, when I do my rotations, I try to do it on the 15th of January, and usually the top box is full of bees and very few in the bottom. But I had bees, even some brood, in some of the bottom, so I just stopped the project, come back to the house, waiting on the rain. They all look good to me.
You must have had some pollen coming in the past week. That
Yeah,
brood.
yeah.
Starting, well, in the next couple weeks, when the pollen starts here, I'll have to really keep an eye on it because they will flat plug that box right out of pollen. I mean, it'll just be slam full.
Yeah, when the tulip poplar trees bloom in my area, if it doesn't rain the week that it's blooming, they can fill a whole deep box up with pollen.
Sounds like a good time to throw pollen traps on.
Yeah, yes. But the problem is that big flower is faces up, and if it rains, then it's over with.
Wipes it out.
Yeah, floods it out. So some years we get it, and some years we don't.
When you get it, you get it.
Yes. I mean, it'll be on the cars and everything, a whole film of it, just
Wow.
flying everywhere.
Well, if you look at the Texas, or I can't call it the Texas bee supply, it's just the bee supply, right? So they had a chart
Yeah.
that shows mine should start. Let's see if I can find it on their
Today.
site. It should start around the middle of February. I'm sorry, it says February 1st to February 15th, which usually falls right along, right along with when we would make splits around the middle of February. We start making splits, which I usually try to wait a little bit longer to let them grow in population before I start splitting them out. I'm trying to see, I don't know where that chart is on their site.
Another thing about, while it's silent, another thing about my boxes having more bees than I expected. We had probably the best fall flow that I've ever had since I started beekeeping. I think some of that was that too.
Yeah, so they went in this winter well. whatever you call winter.
Only a few of them I had to feed back in October.
Yeah, I had I had a zero fall flow this past year because we were in a drought.
Well, we did too. We had that summer dearth and the regular summer dearth and the drought on top of that. I don't know how it did it, but we had one of the best fall flows in my area.
Wow. Even the ragweed wasn't putting stuff out. It's like, wow, that was the first ever.
Let's see. Well, I don't see it in their magazine, so the only other place I know where it's at was on Facebook. So let me go there and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
So important for the streaming. Is anyone even watching it?
Let's see.
I saw next week on Thursday, it's supposed to be like 55 and sunny. So I'm hoping to get in all my hives. See
It's
how
supposed
they're
to
all
get
doing.
75 here this week, but it's supposed to be rainy all the rest of the week. So
Yeah, same here.
You know, we're supposed to hit 60, but rain, rain, rain.
Yeah, I got 63 on Friday, but there's a 70% chance of rain.
Oh my god.
let's see.
Hey, at least they're getting out to get a little bit of a cleansing flight, and they're not locked down. They can go if it's just a little sprinkle or whatever. They can get out and get back.
Where are you located, Dan?
I'm in New Jersey.
New
This is-
Jersey.
The Bee Supply put this chart out for significant pollen flow start dates. So it looks like it's by this chart. It says that mine should be. I'm right in here. Should be February 1st through the 15th.
Oh, I'm February 15th through the 30th.
March 1st, the 15th, and that's about right.
Yeah,
I'm right in the on that line that you're between March and April.
Yeah, but you know what? This year it might all be shifted up north a little bit, being an El Nino, strong El Nino year.
yeah. Maps, whatever. You gotta keep your eye on them.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
know my silver maple tree always had buds on it.
Yeah.
They froze their buds off last week.
That ain't no joke.
Yeah.
So there's, I guess up here where you are, Brad, is after May 15th or around May 15th.
Oh, yeah. Well, usually a little before that. It'll be in April sometime,
No, it's
but not heavy pollen flow. See, the one thing, I'll go backwards here. The one thing that's kind of surprising to me when I got to know beekeepers, keeping bees in a much different climate, is a lot of your nectar flows come from trees. And in our area, almost none of it does. It all comes from, low flowering plants. But in April, we get some pollen from poplars, and I think even some of the evergreens produce some pollen.
There's a T2.
But the early trees then give us some pollen in April. But we don't get any nectar until mid to late May. Dandelion is the first thing we get.
Usually around March here, we'll get that. I call it the yellow cloud, right? Where everything is just covered with pollen.
Yeah.
It's usually like pine
Yeah.
pollen, but it's everywhere on everything. You can wash your car in the morning, you come back in the afternoon, it's just covered with pollen once again.
We don't really see that, not in my experience.
You watch it blow off the trees in clouds.
I'm not scary.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Ian said, fans, that's all I have.
Only
It's
fans.
unfortunate that the bees don't touch that pollen either.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they did. I mean, our first thing is when the red maples start popping, and I've got little buds on them, but it'll be a few weeks before they really start popping open down here.
Well, my first ones are the silver maples. And that's usually end of February.
Violin, trombone.
So there was a guy had a question. I was curious about if he typed there, why not collect pollen while you can, like you're saying, and then feed it back to the bees later instead of pollen patties?
Well,
I was,
one thing that I've heard, I've never collected pollen. I'll tell everybody that to begin with, but you got to kind of be on your game, because it's not one of those things you can put a pollen trap on and, oh, I can't get to it till this weekend to take it back off again, because you will starve your bees out. So
Yeah, that's right. That's
Day
baby
on,
food.
day off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, if you give them the space, you're better to let them just hoard it away, right? And
That's
then
theoretically likely a good idea, but like you say, Bob, it's not just it's not all that simple, and you could do some serious damage if you misstep in there.
You could. It's you know, you got to be on time with it. I do it in the fall because we have a weird flow in the fall, and for some reason they'll pack out the brood nest not with nectar. They'll just plug it out with pollen in the fall, and that's not what you want. So I'll throw the traps on in the fall.
Yeah,
Give 'em
Dan, I
day
get
on.
that. I get that in the spring.
Yeah.
Plus the nectar.
Oh man. Yeah, we don't get it. It happens in the spring, but they eat it up, you know, and they build their brood nest and store the nectar and just grow real nice. So they consume it as they're collecting it. But in the fall, it's odd. She's slowing down, but they keep on. They get on whatever it is that's blooming, and they plug it out, and you'll wind up with frames right on through the brood nest, just plugged out with pollen, and you wind up swapping them out to give her room to lay.
Right.
A lot of pollen, no nectar.
Yeah, I got 3 deeps in my freezer in the garage full of pollen frames.
Ready for queen rearing season.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Too bad they don't hit all those oak tree pollen comes out. I got a lot of oak trees.
Yeah, we got them here too. Oaks and pines.
yeah, we got tons
Yeah.
of pine trees here. And the bad part is, when I started beekeeping here, I had a lot of farm field around me, but in the last 2-3 years, they started developing those into houses. And it's just continuing. They're just building more and more subdivisions and knocking more farmers' fields down.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because, families like Ian's are going away, right? The kids aren't real interested in doing the farming anymore. The parents are getting older to where they don't want to do it anymore. So the only option is to start selling the land off. And then these property developers come in and buy it all up and just build houses and apartments and condos and everything else. And all my fields are going away. So
Yeah.
speaking
My
of,
hunting is probably 98% trees, maybe 2% flowers,
Yeah.
just from the neighborhood.
speaking of farms, that you ever make any progress with your neighborhood strawberry farm, Bob?
no answers from them from my inquiries or anything. They probably won't. But we're gonna just do what we can, and if I've got to find out yards to put bees on, I guess that's what I'm gonna have to do, is find some out yards. I still have I guess 14 acres that surround me that are woods. And, it would be different if I was in one of these old neighborhoods that had azaleas in everybody's yards and plants and everything. But unfortunately, most people nowadays, at least around here, don't care too much about planting plants and keeping their keeping their yards all nice and everything like they seemed to back in the day. So we're just rolling with it. Hey, at least they don't mow the grass very frequently, so we do get the dandelions and some weeds.
I'm starting to see more and more neighbors putting clover back in their yard, which is good.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So
That's
people
whenever I
getting
had to,
away from the monoculture green grass.
and when I've had to reseed my backyard, I just said, well, I just planted clover. I said, all green and white flowers, green things with white flowers. Leave it at that.
My wife actually likes it better.
Oh
She
yeah.
likes that darker green color and all those white flowers.
You only got to mow it a couple times and it just comes back.
Right.
It's nice.
Yeah. A lot better than grass.
Yep.
Too bad you can't do all clover though.
Let's see. Yeah, I was just looking at Ian's comment up there where he said, wow, no need to waste money on patty with pollen coming in like that. Yeah, I usually don't put pollen patty out. This year I tried to put it out earlier, like we're early enough to where people think I'm crazy for putting it on that time of year. That's kind of been the goal. It's like, hey, it's not that we don't need it. We just don't need it that early, right? But right now we've got nothing. So now's the time that we should be using it. So so that's going to be one of the things that I've already started, but I could use, probably that other pound on all my colonies, and getting it out there is the key.
Yeah, I'm putting some on this year. I didn't last year. I did the year before, just because I want to get some nukes out of them. So I want to build them up as fast as I can. So I get enough brood frames to make a couple splits to sell.
Wow, Ian said that the expo brought in $3.5 million in sales at the trade show.
Wow,
that's pretty impressive.
Hopefully next year.
Probably half of it was
I think it's because I'm scary. DJ's also scared of me, so DJ's just
good.
more
What is
defensive.
that sound in the background?
Oh,
I'm
that's.
scared of somebody.
I think that's my kid playing video games. That's why I keep him muted.
Oh, okay. I thought it was somebody talking, and I couldn't figure out who was talking.
It's the voices in your head, Brad.
Oh, yeah, you guys heard it too. Don't pull that this time.
What voices? What are you talking about?
Very, very loud voices in your head, Brad.
Cold and lonely in Canada.
Phil heard them. Well played.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about no kids in my house.
Well, I have kids in the house, but they're not really kids anymore. When you're 30, I don't count you as a kid anymore, even though you technically are a kid.
It might just show up every once in a while.
I think it was Charlie a couple of weeks ago. He said, Joey, do you have background noise? I said, no. I didn't know what he was talking about, and I realized I got 3 grandkids in the house. I had them muted in my head. But I've got 7 grandkids, so I had to mute them mentally. And then after I said no, I realized what he was talking about.
Developed automatic noise suppression.
Noise reduction.
He's got grandkid noise canceling head.
Noise canceling, yeah.
Grandkid canceling. Good stuff. Hey, anybody run Lyson hives?
I've got
the polystyrene ones.
I've got a few of the. I've got 2 or 3 of the nukes and 2 of the 10 framers.
How do you like them?
I love them. My bees love them.
I think I'm going to pick up a couple. We got a show coming up, and I can get them for better bee. I don't have to pay for the shipping, so I think I'm going to.
If you ask Brad, wax moths love them too.
Oh yeah.
Well, wax moths like everything, but
yeah,
they definitely could make a mess of polystyrene for sure.
Keep,
so let me ask you, Don, you say, I think I want to pick some up. Why do you want to run them? And there's good reasons to run them. I just want to have a conversation about that.
I have so many out yards, and just in my backyard, that's like the golden children, if you will. I want to put them back there, but for thermal to monitor the thermal properties of them and see how the
Yeah.
bees react to them versus all of
Yeah.
my other stuff.
And where are you
Um,
located?
I'm in New Jersey,
New Jersey.
the coast, right
So
along
you,
right
you
along
get
the
some
coast.
lower temperatures, but nothing too crazy low.
No, we were in the teens last week. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you could benefit from it then. That's what I mean. You see some here and over here. These are Paradise polystyrene 6 framers,
yeah.
and yeah, you look up close and they look like Swiss cheese boxes, but
Well,
the bees still do good.
one of the other reasons is it seems like over the last couple of years, temperature fluctuations have been like really drastic. Like we'll have
Yeah,
a nice 40, 50, 60-degree day, and then the next day a cold front will blow through and it'll be in the 30s and 40s. It's that
yeah.
wham, and that's
And I believe that temperature fluctuation
mm,
is the killer. Not
yeah,
not particularly low temperatures necessarily, because the bees are really good at staying warm. It's just that I don't believe that they're as good at changing their regime,
right.
right? They
Rapid
lock into
cluster.
something, and then if that temperature changes suddenly, the bees just don't react to that
Yeah,
quickly enough sometimes. So I think you've got the right idea, in my
yeah,
opinion. You know,
yeah.
So I got
Brad,
a whole lesson on
2 weeks,
thermodynamics of these hives with Brad.
Brad, 2 weeks
Because
ago, I had 70 degrees on Friday, and Saturday the high was 20.
yeah,
Wow. That's what I'm
Yep.
talking about. That's how can your bees possibly cluster in
well,
time?
in 2021, it was 75 degrees here on Wednesday, and on Saturday it snowed. And then it warmed back up. The following Wednesday, it was 75 degrees again, and the
Yeah.
following Saturday, it snowed again.
She's like a roller
Yeah.
coaster.
Yep.
yeah.
And took I took Brad's thermodynamics 101 with bees, and that the polystyrene doesn't help heat the bees. It doesn't help keep them warm. It just helps keep their temperatures separated from the exterior ambient temperature around the colony.
Exactly what that's exactly what I want them for is for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and that's insulation. Like our value in insulation is resistance to heat transfer.
Mhm.
So the misconception that we often have, and those people in warmer climates, like really hot climates, Texas and stuff, might get this a little better, is that a lot of us think insulation keeps things warm. Well, it doesn't at all. It decouples. It thermally decouples inside from outside. And so
Right.
you can insulate a house to keep it cool if you're trying to air condition it, or you can insulate a house to keep it warm if you're trying to heat it. But it doesn't keep it cool or keep it warm by itself. It decouples. So I think you're on the right track. That's what it does. It separates that outside fluctuation from what the bees have got going on right in there.
It gives them more time. Gives them
Yeah.
the shock, instead of it being over a
Yeah.
20-hour period, will be over a longer period. It gives them more time to do what they need to do.
So example of that here, where I am near Winnipeg, in the center of Canada, is we can get some very cold temperatures here in the winter. We can get fluctuations, but not as much as some other places. But what the colonies that really consistently will do well in the winter is colonies that get completely buried in snow. If you get 6 feet of snow, or a snowbank, a snowdrift, it covers your colonies, those colonies will be fine and they'll do well. And that's because you've now taken all wind chill factors out of the equation. You've taken fluctuations of the ambient air temperature out of the equation, because snow is actually a very good insulator. And now the moderating factor for the temperature, in that they'll actually melt out a little igloo. If you dig in there, they'll have an igloo melted out 4-6 inches around that hive in the snow. The snow won't be touching the hive at all. And so in
Right.
that little igloo, it's the ground temperature that then moderates that temperature of that igloo where that hive sits. And the ground doesn't change temperature very fast at all. It's
Yeah.
really slow to change temperature. And not only that, but you do have a geothermal effect.
Mm.
So the ground itself keeps the ground warm. It's still going to be below freezing, but
Right.
it'll moderate that
Right.
and
Right.
and decouple that from all of those drastic changes going on. So even though you may not have that kind of snow cover, you can kind of visualize
Yeah.
these
Absolutely.
effects on that hive. So you can
Mhm.
recreate some of that with that polystyrene hive.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I just bought an May hive and I was actually disappointed with it because the top lid is vented. It's like, what's the whole purpose of the insulated box where they vent the lid? So I think I'm going to get some spray foam and insulate it.
Oh, those things are the best thing ever. Everybody on the
Especially when
interwebs
they're
is
free.
saying they're the best thing ever developed.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm not.
So Dan, one other thing I meant to point out with that whole snow cover idea
Yeah.
is thermal gain. People talk about thermal gain, and I
Yes.
think thermal gain is your enemy. You do not want thermal gain, in my opinion. And
Mm.
that's also what the snow cover does, is it keeps the sun off the hive, so you don't have that 24-hour cycle of the sun hitting the hive and then it get cold at night and then sun
Mm.
hitting the hive the next day.
Right.
You don't get that. So I think
Let's
that's another
see.
factor. Solar gain is a negative for the hive. Bee wraps,
Yeah.
in my opinion, should be white or silver, not
Huh.
black.
That's duly noted. I mean, I was always a fan of solar gain. Maybe I'll change my tune to that.
Well, these are kind of theories that I believe are true, and so do some
Mm.
experimenting, see if you can break them.
Well, I know
I'd
where
love it if
my
somebody could
colonies
break
are
the theory.
sitting.
Yeah.
That when the sun rises in the morning and it's coming up, my house gets it first, right? And then my house casts a shadow on my apiary until the sun gets up high enough. And you can see the colonies that are not getting hit by the shadow. Well, you can definitely walk out there and see them flying first. They're out and about. And then as the sun comes up and it starts hitting these other colonies and they start warming up and waking up a little bit,
Yeah.
then it's game on, right, for everybody. But you can really see it, especially the ones that are on the other side of that driveway that are on that side. They don't get hit at all by the house. And they're out first thing in the morning doing their thing. So
A couple of years ago, I bought 4 broodminder temperature sensors, and I put them initially. I put them on the top bars. Now I run a migratory cover, so it's just a 3/4 inch piece of plywood with a 1/2 inch shim. So it just, it's not a lot of R value or anything, and it's not even a double thing like an inner and then a telescoping. So if you can picture that. But this temperature sensor was sitting right on the top bar of the hive, single deep colony. And I looked at that data for quite a few months. I watched that data, and when you look at broodminders data, they also superimpose on your data graph the measured ambient temperature in your area. So that's really nice because you can then see any correlations between your data and what's going on in the ambient surrounding. With that temperature sensor sitting on the top bar, I was measuring the outside temperature.
Oh.
The
Wow. Right
bees
through
had
the lid, huh?
almost no effect on that temperature sensor. It was sitting on the top bar. You think that's close enough to the cluster. I was measuring outside temperature. I tipped
Wow.
it and set it just between the top bars, and it leveled right out and started measuring what I believe was almost consistent cluster temperature. So just that small change, it only changed by about an inch
Wow.
in there.
If you
So,
if you
you know,
if you talk to Ed, Mr. Ed, or Randy, and all them, and I've seen it myself. If you do cutouts, you'll find out that the bees are almost always on the north side of the house. Sometimes on the east, northeast corner, seldom on the west, and never on the south.
Yeah.
bees actually prefer to be in the shade. I think so they can
Interesting.
control the thermal a little bit better inside their hive.
Interesting. Huh.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to
What you're saying,
sign
Brad,
off.
it
I'll talk to y'all
supports the
later.
same thing.
See you, Morgan. Have
See
a
you
good
later,
night.
Morgan.
See you, Morgan.
Which
Y'all
is
have a good
interesting
evening.
because Sealy actually talks a lot about bees choosing an entrance that's on the south. That's
Mm.
inconsistent with what Brother Adam talked about too. So I think there's a lot of questions there still because a lot of the experts don't agree, and
Yeah.
even the anecdotes don't really agree. So
I saw that. I saw that, Tom, the thing with Randy, and it, it was pretty interesting that he stated that like 90% of the cutouts that he does are in that position. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I've done 5 or 6, and they've all been on the north side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the bees themselves saying, they're telling you.
Right, right. They don't want to be in the direct sun
Yeah. Weird.
or in the roof of a house with the eaves with that thermal heat.
Yeah, but like Brad, like you were saying with Tom Seeley, I read that book, The Honeybee Democracy, and all about that, his studies, and he put a lot of time in proving that they like the South. So it's like, okay, flip a coin,
Right.
you know?
Well, if you
yeah,
notice, a lot of Randy and Mr. Ed's cutouts are underneath the houses, right? The houses are on
yeah,
pillars or stanchions,
Yeah.
right? And they're underneath, so they're really shading themselves from the sun as well under there. So it's
yeah.
pretty
Right,
interesting.
right.
And
You're either in
Steely's
the
work
wall
too
or in the floor,
was
on the
feral
first
hives
floor.
too, so they were all tree cavities and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So there's a few dynamics that are different there. If you think about the thermodynamics, the thermal R value decoupling that we talked about, the top of a tree cavity where the bees are has how much tree above it? It 20, 30,
Yeah.
40, 80 feet, right?
Yeah.
So there's a
A lot.
huge
Our,
insulating
our
value on the
infinity.
very top, right? And then there's the tree cavity outside the tree wall outside the cavity that they're living in, which could be 6 inches, it could be 3 feet. You don't know.
Mm,
So there could be a very high insulative value there as well.
yeah.
And a tree, a tree cavity in a tree in the forest, well, there's going to be a lot of shade there anyway. So
Yeah.
who would
They're
Right.
care
they're
which
looking
way
they're
it's
looking for
facing half the time?
they're looking for the sheer cubic inch,
Hey, Brad, I just
Brad,
called.
when I set my hives up for wintertime, I try to simulate a tree as much as I can because I try to do a high R value in the top and a high R value in the bottom. And then, of course, my boxes are R9.1, basically R1. So if there is any condensation, it's not on the top and it's not in the bottom, it's on my sides. Same as
Right,
a
right.
tree. A tree's R
Yeah,
infinity, top and bottom, and a
yeah,
tree's anywhere R6, R10, depending what tree it is.
Works out perfect for the
All the
bees.
condensation's on the side, on the
yeah,
inside of the
yeah.
tree.
Brad, I just called in to confirm one of the things you were saying a minute ago, and agree with you. Is last year I'd put a insulated blanket over all my hives, and so I had basically 3 sets of 12, and on 2 of the sets of 12 they were underneath a green tarp. So I had the insulation, and to cover the insulation, just to make sure the extra weather wouldn't bother it, I basically kind of like a cozy hive cozy,
Bee
except
cozy.
for bee cozy, except for it enclosed the top as well. Anyway, long story short, 2 of them were green and one was black, and the nine let's call it 90% of the ones underneath the black died. The ones underneath the green, 90% of them lived. So everything what you were just saying is 100% accurate too. I mean, that is a perfect field study
So would you
because
say the shade of green that you had was light enough that you don't imagine that the thermal gain was appreciable?
it wasn't as bad as the black. Let's just put it that way,
Yeah,
because for whatever reason, and like I said, every one of these hives have the same basic colonies, the same setup, same everything. The only
yeah,
difference is one was black, and the other two were green. And like I said, 90% of the black one died, and only out of the other 24, only one hive died out of the other 24. But
interesting.
all but two, so 10 out of 12 died underneath the black.
So
And
do it
the two
again.
that-
Repeat it.
and the two- they were on the air.
Repeat it. See if we can get a trend here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, like I say, hives that are covered in the snow here, they do great. And I think that's one reason that the sun doesn't get at them. Sun doesn't get at them.
A cold
I had
cluster
a young
that stays.
I had a younger beekeeper here, younger beekeeper, somebody who hadn't kept bees very long. I think it was 22. It was 2022 when we had all that snow in April, and he contacted myself, and his mentor was a friend of mine, and he phoned me and he said, I don't know what to tell this guy because he was losing his mind. It was early May, and his bees in this one yard were covered in literally 6 feet of snow. He showed a picture. He dug down to find a hive, and it was 6 feet down in the snow in early May.
Wow.
And I said, I don't know what to tell you, but my gut says don't worry about it. That's pretty late, though, right? That's very, very late.
Yeah.
But
Because
and he got back to us in mid to late June, and he said, you know what, guys? I had 2 yards of bees. One was under 6 feet of snow, and the other one had, moderate snow cover. In May, they were not covered in snow at all. And he said the yard that didn't have hardly any snow, the bees were terrible. And that yard covered in snow, they were fantastic. So in that instance, the rule was really proven. So
yeah,
it's tough to see. You lose your hives in the snowbank, you think, oh man, what's going on? But just leave it be.
Well, I mean, really, if it is under 6 foot of snow, there's nothing you can do. If it's dead anyway, it's dead. There's nothing you can do. I mean, until it thaws out anyway, right? So, I mean, as far as digging down to them, I mean, you could dig them.
Get a big machine and do a lot of digging.
Dig them all out and watch them fly in the snow. At least they can clean out the dead, carry out the corpses. But, I still, and we've talked about this a lot as far as, is it easier to keep bees in a northern climate or a southern climate? I think, like you said, we all have our own challenges, right? And it just depends where you guys, like you said, if they're covered in snow, they're good because they're in there. They're not flying. They're not dying, using very little resources because they're not brooding, right? And the flip side of that coin is down here. Yeah, we'll get a period. If we get a cold spell like this week to where they're inside and they're not flying, and when it does get warm enough, it's raining and they can't get out. Now you're wondering, well, it's warm enough they're actually moving around in there, but there's maybe not enough resources depending on how long that period is, right? So
that was my theory about using the bands of tar paper, depending on how much sun they got, whatever yard it was in. So if they were in the sun all day, I would use a wide piece of tar paper. I would never cover the whole hives with tar paper. I would just give them a band, some a 12-inch band, some a 10-inch band, depending on how much sun they had. Now, my theory on that was just to give them enough solar gain so they can move to where there would be some food in the hive and the cluster wasn't so tight. But that theory is up for debate.
I think that's a valid concern because we do hear that a lot where, they starved and they had food right beside. However, I'll talk about something different here. If you can picture my finger here drawing a graph, when you go, what the research showed, and the reason that we winter our bees at 4 degrees C, which is about 40 F, in our buildings is because they've calculated that ambient temperature results in the lowest metabolic rate, so the lowest consumption of feed. And the graph goes like this: when that temperature increases over, say, 40 F, which I think most people here are talking F, the feed consumption, the metabolic rate and feed consumption goes like this.
That
Okay.
fast, huh?
It goes up pretty fast. And if you go, I'm sorry, I got a giant cat here that needs attention.
It's a polar bear.
So if you go below that, as the temperature decreases from 40 F, the feed consumption goes, oh, I'll start over here. The feed consumption goes like this as the temperature drops. Okay. So your metabolic rate as the temperature falls increases way slower, like
Yeah.
way slower than it does when the temperature increases.
When it gets
When it
above
gets over
when it
40
gets
F,
above
it just
40.
starts to skyrocket, right?
Well,
when it starts to go down,
Mm.
it doesn't increase very fast at all. So
Most
there's
of our
little-
days in the winter up here, most of the days are in the 40s. I mean, like last week we had a couple days in the 20s, but I would have to say a good part of the winter is in the 40s, low 40s, high 30s, maybe mid 30s. But nothing like you guys. There's always
so
there's
those
always
are some little things that sort of, when you look at that hive now and you look at the things that you're doing to help them survive, you know, I get concerned in the spring and the fall. I get concerned when my hives are outside, because I mean, you can see them here. They're wooden hives. They don't have any wrapping. They'll sit out into early November outside, and I'm be looking at temperatures of -10 C or colder. So you'd be looking at temperatures possibly close to 0 F before they get moved into the building. And I'm standing there biting my nails thinking, oh no, what's going on? Right? My poor bees, they're quite fine. They're quite fine.
I watched a study of some college, and I believe it was in Wisconsin, and they had taken a colony of bees and they put them. They took two colonies. One they put it in a wooden hive. I think it was insulated, and then the other one they took a colony of bees and they put it in a like a screen, like a mesh box, and to prove that the cold doesn't kill the bees, that they just consume more energy. So as long as they can get to the energy, sugar, then they can maintain their body heat and they can survive. And that's kind of like with Tom last week when his hives fell over and it was below 0 degrees or whatever, at 0 degrees. His hive, because they were able to consume energy.
Yeah.
6 days.
And then
and it got down to -2.
Then Fred Dunn had
-0.
Fred Dunn did a article or whatever, what do you want to call it, blog the other day, was talking about if bees do not have any like a cluster or whatever, how long they can survive at a sub temperature. And I forget what it was, but it's like if they go below like 20 degrees for 2 days, they'll perish. But if they can survive, if they're able to cluster and get above that temperature.
If they have enough feed. Here's a little experiment that was done near me, just a few miles east of me. I had a friend who's a beekeeper there, and he didn't get his bees put away one winter. And he was running 75 colonies. I think it was running 75 colonies. And he didn't get his bees put away, so they sat in wooden boxes just like this all winter. And it was disastrous. It was absolutely disastrous. However, he did a post-mortem on every one of those colonies, and because it was a very expensive experiment for him. Out of 75 colonies, and I believe I've got this right, out of 75 colonies, 3 survived. Can you believe that? A Canadian winter, -40 for weeks, right? One of them, no, 2 of them iced up because they didn't have enough ventilation to get rid of the condensation as they consumed the feed. So that was And so 70 hives starved to death. Okay. So had they had more feed available, maybe they would have had more survive, because 3 of them did survive. They had enough feed and they had enough ventilation to keep the condensation out, and they survived. Am I
Hey,
dropping out?
Robert, those 3 hives went from minus
Am I
3
dropping
to
out?
20 Fahrenheit
So
or minus 20, minus 6 Celsius for 6
yeah,
days,
where did I get
and
to?
they survived. So they can survive 6 days of 20 or cooler.
It's funny when Brad's talking. It's a Kramer is like moving, like he, you can see the.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if what I said came through. Did you get what I said? So
No,
this is what I'm saying though. It's not 20 degrees for 3 days or whatever. This where did I drop out in that story? Because pretty important story, I think.
I think all of it.
You said he had 3 that survived. So if chances
Okay.
are, if they had more feed, that more would have survived.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So it's
that's
75
right.
colonies. 2 of them iced up because they couldn't ventilate the moisture. 3 of them survived because they had enough feed to get through, and 70 of them died of starvation. So
Starvation.
they didn't die.
God,
What they
what a
didn't
sad
die
sight.
of
They didn't die
was
from cold.
freezing up. They didn't die from the cold. They died because they didn't have enough food to stay warm. If they'd had enough food to stay warm, they wouldn't have died. Right. So
Right.
this, I think that was a really interesting experiment, although extremely sad and expensive, for him. He gets his bees put away now every year.
Yeah, like I said, I've watched a video on it. I'll have to see if I can find it, but I watched a video. Like I said, it was Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure it was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I seen it, but they took it was basically open air hive, and it survived. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you can keep the wind off of them and that sort of thing.
The
Yeah,
rain.
it's the cluster. It's the cluster provides the insulation, not the box.
Well, if you ever look at the thermal pictures that, especially now, a lot of people are putting them up with FLIRs and whatnot, that you'll see the box is definitely cooler around, but there's that white hot cluster in the box, right? So
I have one of those cameras, and yes, the image looks a lot more dramatic than it really is. It's because if you actually look at the temperature of that white hot spot as compared to the cold spot, it's really not that much of a difference. That camera compensates automatically to give you the greatest image range for what it's seeing. So if it sees an image that has a variation of 2 degrees Celsius, it'll go through its entire color range within 2 degrees Celsius. It looks like it's molten bees.
right.
So, yeah, I think it looks a lot more dramatic than it is, because obviously you'd feel it with your hand if it was that dramatic.
But
But
I mean,
anyway,
it does
this is all
give you the
interesting
example.
stuff, right? Pardon me,
It'll
Bob?
definitely show you the difference, though, how the temperature is
Oh yeah,
much hotter at the cluster than it is in the box itself,
It-
right? So
yeah, it is warmer. So the blanket statement that the cluster doesn't warm the box at all, that's not true, obviously, but it's not dramatic. The cluster
it's just
itself offers,
basically ambient temperature that's coming off of them,
yeah, it's almost, the
like a
cluster
radiator.
provides almost all of the insulation that they need, really.
Yeah. On the ones that fell over on the center hive, middle hive, there was a pretty good cluster of bees that somehow fell another 3 or 4 inches from the frame, and they were clustered there. Those bees died, but all the ones that were still in the frame, between 3 frames that didn't break apart, they survived.
So what Tom was saying earlier about insulation on the top, that's controlling humidity, moisture, condensation, and ice. And I think that's probably the greatest contribution that your insulation in the winter gives you. It gives the colony the capacity to keep the cavity free of ice and condensation above. You don't want that condensation dripping on the bees,
Right.
etc.
Right.
So I think that's the chief contribution of insulation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I switched all my hives out this year. As far as the way each year I progress a little bit more because of the fact that I have more hives and it's just the cost to do special things to each individual hive. I'm looking at trying to, if I can eventually get up to 100 hives, what am I going to have to do or want to do to insulate them? So what I did this year is the last year and this year I put, like, lack of a better, a top hat on there, like a feeder shim, where I can put down some kind of feed in there, fondant, and then it has insulated lid, but it's really minor, the insulation on there. But then I laid a just foam insulation on top of that, just to see what that does for this year. But I'm only insulating the lids at this point. I'm not insulating the sides anymore. So I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen. Now, this year I did a little bit different as far as I did use the Apis Biologics. So hopefully that has some help. But I'm interested to see if that minimal, if you will, insulation, just instantly the roof, is going to make a difference.
Hey, Robert, read about the condensation hive method. That's basically what I do. I just make sure the condensation's on the side, so I don't insulate the side of the boxes. I don't want to. I want all the condensation to be on the sides.
Yeah. They can access it if they need it there.
Then they can access it too, easier.
And that's consideration for location and climate as well, because as I stated, that some of those colonies iced up, and so in my climate, then we would want some kind of an insulating panel on the outside to allow it to do exactly that, to remain liquid and not just turn to ice when it hit the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years.
And then on the south, they probably hardly do. Bob probably has to do hardly nothing.
No, I don't have to do much. I mean, they get condensation in there. Don't get me wrong.
Bob just has to apply sunblock.
But I work off of I tell myself, and I could be totally full of crap on this, but I tell myself that when there's no water for them to get, that's their water source over the winter.
Yeah.
That when it's warm enough for the cluster to break and there's moisture in the colony, they drink it.
Yeah, as long as the moisture's dripping in the right place.
Yeah, not on top of it. Right?
And it's not dripping. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because we can talk about these principles, and if we understand the principles, then we can apply those principles to a wide variety of climates, right? We can go to just about any climate we want, and we can say, okay, these are the principles, rather than just having blanket statements that, I should insulate to R8 or R10 or whatever, all this kind of thing.
And see, that's why people gave me a chuckle a few weeks ago when I said I was applying Canadian beekeeping techniques down in South Carolina. And people, that's hilarious. Well, I call them Canadian, but it's like in China, Chinese food is just food, right?
Food.
So it's the same thing. So Canadian beekeeping techniques is still just beekeeping techniques, but you guys do them at a different time of the year. So when you guys bring them out and it's cold outside and you're slapping patties on them, well, I was traditionally not doing that here. So I tried to back it up to when the temperatures were such that, well, this is about the time that they need to start stimulating brood growth in the colonies to be able to feed them. So that's when I started feeding them in December, feeding them some pollen and trying to inch them along till nature takes over, right? And it got quite a chuckle because I probably stated it incorrectly, but that's the principle. I'm just rolling the timing of what I'm doing to fit my geography. And hopefully it works. But, I think as beekeepers, we get in this mold to where we keep doing the same things we've done year after year after year because, well, I was taught to do it that way because that's the way the guy that taught me did it. So that's the way I'm going to do it. And now when I show somebody, he's going to do it the way I did it. And I'm only doing it because this other guy showed me and that's how he did it. Right. And sometimes we get in that analysis paralysis where we stay in our own little box. And it's like, well, you know, we're going to split on Valentine's Day because that's when people down here split on Valentine's Day. Right. And we just don't stop to say, well, why are we doing that? Well, I'm doing it because Sam does it that day, and Sam's doing it because whoever told him is doing it that way, right?
Because the book told you to.
Cool.
Yeah.
When you get bees, you have your first year or two or whatever bees. You find somebody that's successful. You know, don't just listen to anybody, because you be listening to a beekeeper and they've never kept a colony of bees alive over the winter in their life. And I just read a Facebook post with this. I really felt sorry for this guy, but I applauded his stick-to-itiveness. He said he's been keeping bees for 8 years and he's never successfully wintered a colony. And I thought that's really sad because he buys bees every year.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But you know, if you
need to applaud him for just admitting that.
If you find somebody who's successful and just mimic what they're doing to kind of get by, and then get your education going, and then you can start to figure out exactly why they're doing what they're doing. And sometimes you can see holes in it and say, you know what, I'm gonna, you know, maybe try something else. That's where the education starts. So yeah, definitely mimic at the beginning when you don't know anything. That's what I did.
I have an apprentice. That's the one thing I told her. I said, you're not a beekeeper until you get a colony of bees through the winter. Then you're a beekeeper.
Well, you
other than that,
then
you're if you're not, you're just a bee haver. You know.
Well, that's what this guy said. He said, "I'm not a beekeeper. I'm a bee buyer." He said. I really applauded his humor about the whole thing because it was quite sad.
Well, most of us run not for profits anyway. Not that we don't want a profit. It's just, you know.
I keep telling myself it's just a hobby.
Well, it's one of those things that I'm finding, for me personally, after looking at my tax return this year and the inch
said the ugly word,
inch to 2 inch thick of invoices where I've purchased things, is that that's something I can control, right? I can stop. Well, maybe I can't, but most people can stop buying stuff, right? It's like, I've got enough stuff. Let's just fill those up and get them going. And now cut my overhead from continuously buying, you know, stuff I don't need. You know, obviously there's stuff you do need, like feed and pollen sub and stuff like that, treatments and stuff like that you're going to do. But there's stuff in there. I bet you all of us could go through our list and be like, did I really need that item? Right? Did I need another Chinese hive tool? I don't know. You know,
or the stuff you buy and you got a big plan and then you never implement it, or you do and it doesn't work and it just becomes something collecting dust in the corner and you realize, well, there's a bunch of money down the toilet.
I know. So it's like, it's just.
But you try your best, right?
But, you know, there's things like I did that first time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy queens after the solstice and I'm going to make splits and I'm going to have nukes going into spring. And, you know, you spend $1,100 on queens because it's late in the year. And how many of them took? Zero. $1,100, bam, off the bottom line, right? Plus the resources.
That's not a net loss, though. That's not a net loss, though.
So it's just one of those things that you can control some of those things, right? And probably bring, well, for me, maybe bring me to at least starting some debt management, right? To start recouping some of that money, as long as I don't keep funneling it out the bottom, right? So, you know, like flying to Canada for a week, you know, that's that's an expense.
I'm gonna start to feel bad.
Oh man, I tell you, every time I deal with the passport office, I'm like, man, this trip's just getting more and more and more expensive every time. Is it
really worth it?
Let me see. I haven't bought the plane tickets yet. It's $800 and some for the room. I spent $500 on passport, so I'm $1,300 in and haven't even bought my way to there yet. So we're talking probably $2,000 before food and all that other stuff. So yeah, it's starting to add up. Thank God it's a tax deduction for next year. So
There you go.
So we're building deductions, but as far as controlling my expenses, I'm not. Right now, it's my plan to not add more boxes. I'm going to fill up what I've got. I'm going to utilize what I got. That's what I keep telling myself. Utilize what I got. I've got plenty of 2-frame nukes. I've got plenty of 5-frame nukes, 6-frame nukes, deeps, bottom boards, top. I got enough of that. I just have to fill them and keep them alive, right?
Right. You know, it's amazing after all the years of beekeeping. When I started out, everybody told me to get my bees through winter, I needed to be in 2 double deeps, 100 and 150 pounds of honey on top of it,
Yeah.
fondant board, and vent it. And now, after all these years, I'm down to a single deep. I insulate the top and I don't vent.
You were lied to, Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I mean, no, the person who told me he keeps 200 hives and that's exactly what he does. And he wraps his hives and everything.
Everybody does it different.
ladies and gentlemen, the king of Kraken.
But I found out, I worked for a
Hey,
guy.
boss.
I don't know.
Cheers to
No,
that.
I found out I
It's
can
about
keep
time you
alive and
showed
let me
up.
just pack out 1 box and then insulate the top really well so no moisture drips on them.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
they get through my Southwest Ohio winter.
Let me see. Bob, you think you're bad. I bought a second house, and it was on the border of a 600-acre ornament tree farm. That's hey, at least it's in a good spot if they're nectar producing trees or pollen producing trees.
I got
Bob
virgin
Brown was
Fresca
asking
gin.
something about your margarita machine.
Yeah, so that person sold them. They sold my margarita machines. So I've got to find some more cheap ones to look for. So till then,
I need to get a refill.
Otherwise known as Fresca.
Fresca.
I said I got a virgin Fresca and gin, otherwise known as
Oh,
Fresca.
I looked into that after you brought it up because it made a lot of sense because with your creaming honey, the fact that you do have to chill creaming honey down after you blend it for a period of time, you have it right there in the machine. So you could put a switch on that, so a timer, so it turns the machine on every 15 minutes and turns it, runs for 2 minutes, turns off 15 minutes, whatever. And then when you're ready, you can just crank on the chiller and chill the thing down. And then before it sets, you could just open up the valve and out it comes. So I think it's pretty brilliant, but I looked into it and I wasn't able to find anything that was reasonably priced because I was thinking, man, that's dual purpose right there. Margarita machine and honey creamer. Because honestly, how often are you creaming honey? The other 80% of the time, man, you got a margarita machine.
Well, I just got to looking at that $35,000 machine, and it just seemed to me that it was an auger. I mean, you can't see it, but you see it turning and it popping air out like it's just pushing the air around. So my thought was that, hell, I could get one of those for, well, I found a couple for $125 a piece on there, load it full of some seed honey, some creamed honey, and just turn it on mix and let that slushy machine just turn it and blend everything together. And what they do is, if you listen to his video, they run it and mix it together. They pump it out right into a bucket. They put the bucket in a chiller for 24 hours. They bring it back the next day. They dump it back in. They turn it some more, pump it back out, put it back in the chiller. Then they bottle it. So it's still like a 3-day process. So my thought was, hey, put it in the slushy machine, just let it turn and mix it up, open the front, put it in the bucket, done.
The viscosity might be a problem. That's the only thing that I'm thinking because my mom she used to have a restaurant business and she had one of those commercial, and you know how most of them are dual, like they have two units. And the gear is stripped out of that thing a couple of times and I had to repair it. And so my only concern, but you could 3D print it, so it's not really a big deal for you. If you did strip out the gear, hell, the 3D printed gear would probably be stronger than the gear that's in it. However, if I remember right, the gear is inside the machine. I can't remember. It's been too many years since I repaired it, but that would be my only concern, is the gear may not be strong enough, because I think that the honey, especially creamed honey, might be a little bit tougher than the slushy. Maybe not, but it's pretty brilliant though if it does work, because like I said, it does everything you want it to do. I mean, set that thing on a timer and presto.
The only thing that I noticed is some of the ones that I've seen that actually put like the range for the chiller, it's colder than what they suggest for honey. So I think
you don't have to run it that long, because it's you could run it as it chills. So you could run it, I don't know what the time frame is, but you could figure that out. You run it for 30 minutes, shut it off for 30 minutes, run it for 30 minutes, shut it off for 30 minutes, because that would get it would bring the temperature down. By the time it's cooling too far, you could turn it back on. And you could even take one of those what's it called? Not Rainbird. Inkbird, and use that. Just, glue it on the outside of it, so that way it's sensing the temperature through the plastic. Yes, it won't be as accurate, but you can set inside that Inkbird, you can set a range. So you could say to turn on and off at 10 degrees or something like that. And you could adjust the temperature to meet the temperature inside, if that makes sense. It may not be, whatever that is that you're trying to chill it to, 20 degrees, I don't know. But you could definitely adjust the device so it would see that.
Yeah, so that's probably going to end up being an experiment for next year when I have more honey to try it with. So I'll keep my eyes open on Facebook Marketplace, see if I can find one cheap. Otherwise, I'll have to contact my good friends at Vivor and see if they'll send me one to do a video on.
Even if you could find one that's got like bad refrigeration, so buy it cheap just for that
just for the mixing part of it. Yeah,
just for the auger part of it.
So it's definitely cheaper than $35,000, that's for sure, for home use.
Yeah, right in the basement tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just bought a mixer off an auction site, 9.5 quarts, 10 speeds. I'm sure one of the slow speeds will be good for mixing it. So I'm gonna be doing some in the near future.
Right.
I did. I stripped out. I bought that heating cabinet, that food heating cabinet, and that was one of my big projects this last week. When I got the heating cabinet, it was all analog controls, right? And there's no, you turn the dial to low, medium, hot, whatever. There was no way to really control it, I didn't feel. So I stripped all the electronics out of it, and I put in two of those Inkbirds, and now I can digitally control it through the Wi-Fi. So now that cabinet, I'm able to dial it in and get exactly whatever temperature I want. So that's been pretty nice. I just
now you can say, "Hey Alexa, set the warming cabinet to 100 degrees."
I don't know if those work with that, but yeah, on my phone, and it sends me an alarm.
Hey Siri, mix my honey.
Yeah. It sends me an alarm now, so if it goes over temperature, and then it also has that digital alarm out on the cabinet that would go off. So
nice.
But the real question is, have you actually warmed some honey and put it in bottles yet?
I didn't, but however, I have a good excuse. I'm full of excuses. But
at least you know it's an excuse. There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, Randy was asking that question a little bit ago, and I'll say, look, he asked me the question, he runs off. See how I'm treated? Ian, I asked her, are you hiding in the basement now?
In the basement? No, I'm upstairs.
Oh.
I'm in the basement.
I seen the lights were dark, so I just thought maybe you were in the basement.
No, it's just ending off the day.
Where's the fireplace? Is that where your toes are?
Pardon me, sorry.
I said, where's the fireplace? Is that where your toes are?
Oh, yeah, back there.
Yeah. So, Bob, to answer your question, I had a problem with my state registration for my name. it turns out I was using somebody else's name. So I had to refile for my name for my LLC, and I got that taken care of. And then I actually just got approved today. I submitted it 2 weeks ago. It got rejected, and I got the rejection letter, and then I refiled. And so that got taken care of. So I'm official now with the new name. And then the heating cabinet is now up and running. And I actually, while we were talking here, I've been online with a person that's taking care of my labels. So that part's good, except for here, let me share my screen. Maybe you guys can answer this. Well, I don't think this is a Canadian thing, maybe, but 2 seconds, and I will share this. Let's see.
What about the guy that wanted to buy all the honey? Is he still game or no?
Yeah, that's still. I mean, we haven't negotiated a rate, but I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row. If I can figure out how to switch this camera to.
See, you're better than me. I'd be worried he'd find honey from someone else. I would already be.
Is that present? Is that
In Ohio, you have to use at least 70% of your honey. You can add 30% of somebody else's honey and sell it up to 30%.
that wasn't it, Robert?
I know. I'm trying to figure out. It's not here. It's not showing me the normal options from my camera. It just has USB and.
You don't have a button at the bottom that says present.
No, hold on. Let me close this and then see if it's maybe because I have full screen and maybe it's off the bottom of the screen.
Should say mute, stop cam, settings, present.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to be able to pick old refrigerators out of the garbage at work and make them into honey warmers. I've made 4 of them.
Oh,
I give them out to my friends. Here's one of them right here.
Okay, can you see that? So UPC, I did not realize that UPCs were owned by a nonprofit organization. You have to pay a fee to own a UPC.
Really?
Yep.
That's right.
And so this is how the UPC. I had the
GS1.
Yep, GS1.
That's right.
Is the U.S. organization that takes care of it. But I was going to ask you guys, and
But US, buddy, it's global.
Oh, is it? Okay. It just
yeah.
it says GS1 US, so I just assumed.
That's the US
so what, you
arm.
purchase your own UPC seal?
Yeah, for each, and you have to have one for each size, each flavor, whatever. And then the first, and over here is I was trying to find, there's a 9-digit and a 6-digit, and I was just going to ask you guys what's better, but I can't find where that's at now. I had it up on my screen.
Is that one they're picturing right there? Scroll down. That one in the picture. That's what you want.
Farther.
Go down.
There's 2 types.
That's what you want right there.
So that's here. That's the 9-digit, right? That's this one here. If you go, and I apologize for scrolling all over God's creation here. I did have this up earlier, but here's your cost structure. If anybody out there cares, but you get 10 UPCs for $250, or it's $30 for each.
But
so
this is a subscription, though.
Well, this is a one-time, right?
An annual fee.
If you buy one, you don't have to pay an annual up to 10. So the first 9, you don't pay an annual fee. Anything over 9, you pay $250 plus an annual fee.
Okay, that's different than the way the Canadian arm controls it.
Gotcha. But I guess what I was going to ask you is what the difference was between a 9-digit and a 6-digit UPC. But
how many variations you have?
Well, that's
what you want. That one in the picture, that's what you want.
You probably only need 6 digits.
There's so many different kinds of UPCs.
Yeah, this is
but that one in the picture. That's all you ever see on a product.
Yeah, that was why I was looking at this, because I have to have this to do business with them. So I have to purchase this, but for me, I only have to purchase 2.
I have a
For
tip
two
for you next
sizes.
time.
All right. There you go.
You want a
But,
tip
yeah.
on UPCs?
39,
Absolutely. I'll take any helpful hints you can give.
Go to a
128.
website called Simply Barcodes. Can you find that?
Sure.
I don't remember where I bought my barcode for my swarm lure, but I had to have a barcode to sell at retail.
See, Robert? I used to deal with GS1, and there seemed to me be quite a tyrannical operation. And so I ditched them and purchased UPCs from Simply Barcodes. And they are barcodes that originate with GS1, but I just buy them. Otherwise, I had to pay GS1 every year for my barcodes. With this Simply Barcodes, I just buy them and I own them for life.
Yeah, that's how if you're buying them at $30 a piece, that's how they are. It's forever. But if you're buying more than
what
10,
I'm saying
then
is you can compare prices and whatnot with a place like
I'll do
Simply
that.
Barcodes.
And that's when Ian says, "Man, I'm glad I sell all my honey to the co-op."
Yeah, I don't have any of that experience.
He just sits by the fire all winter. That's all he does.
And hunt.
No, you know what? That's the thing. Guys, sometimes guys that ship in the barrel, they look at my, getting $4 or $5 a pound for honey, and they think, oh man, that's really amazing. You get so much for your honey. Well, I work for it. I certainly work for it. And when I net out what I'm getting, I'm not getting a lot more than what Ian's getting in the barrel. Just that I have to work all winter packing and delivering and dealing with stores and customers, and that's just my model, right? That's just what I do.
Just think how much easier you were looking at ways to reduce the workload. Just barrel it up and sell it all at one time. Yep. Less work all winter long. Just think how much more time you'd have to build woodenware.
That's right.
Yeah, well, that's I have a lot of woodenware to get caught up on right now, and it's just piled. I have 1,000
need to get more woodenware customers. I think though, selling honey for me is probably easier than selling woodenware.
Is that because your woodenware customers are just so difficult to deal with?
Some of them are pretty easy with wherever I can point. Well, selling woodenware, you got to find beekeepers, and it's a pretty small sample size. Selling honey, just about everybody eats honey, and beekeepers are cheap. So they're always trying to squeeze you. Well, most of them, not all of them.
Where's Charlie at? We're missing him and God tonight.
Yeah, he's buying a lifter, I hope.
Sometimes on Tuesdays, these
time lifter.
About that B3 model.
B meetings and stuff. On
hey guys, I'm heading off.
All right, Tom, have a good one.
Yeah.
Be
Tom,
good.
Take it easy, bud.
Everybody have a good one.
And it's
You too.
Good night.
JW sneak in at the bottom there.
He's hiding behind his name.
Yeah.
Soapstone Farm.
Kind of look like you got Jurassic Park behind you there.
Do what?
It kind of looks like a little bit of Jurassic Park there.
It's a big fence. Looks good though. Nice looking apiary.
Yeah. Those boxes look way nicer than mine.
Mine kind of looks like a homeless zone, right? Where there's like stuff everywhere.
Homeless bees.
It looks like underneath the bridge where a bunch of homeless people live. And there's just bags and stuff sitting everywhere. But yeah, it's I think once you get your stuff up and going there, Robert, you'll probably be saying, "Why didn't I do this earlier? Why?"
I definitely could see that. At this point, like I said, I kind of knew all the hurdles I had to go through, but I just didn't fully realize it at the time. Like this UPC part, I just assumed you went on and generated a UPC. I had no idea you had to go pay a fee and register it with
Well, they are
somebody.
unique, so somebody's got to organize that.
Yeah. Well, I just assumed that they weren't that unique. I don't know.
And I don't know, is that a requirement under the law for you, or are you some of the
just
stores
people
that are going to be
sellers here.
scanning products?
It's going to go into a retail store. So
Okay, most of my stores don't scan. There's a few of them scan, but most of mine don't scan. But I have UPCs anyway, just cover the bases.
Yeah, so that was one thing. It's like that's something new to me. And then I've been running underneath. I created a new name because I'm this particular what I'm selling the honey for now is just for the college tuition, and so I created a name that is more unique just for that. Well, I didn't even think to register it. So when I went to register it, it was already taken. So here I was using somebody else's name basically. So I had to go and backtrack and eat crow and redo that. So it's like a lot of these little things that I know better. I just wasn't really thinking about it because I wasn't planning on retailing, until I wouldn't always wanted to, but when I actually went to do it, I just didn't realize it was that complicated. So,
am I the only one that doesn't have an LLC? It's like I
don't have an LLC.
Sole proprietorship, right? Just sell it, and
I don't.
And then again, all of my honey sales are drive up, get their honey and go home, right? So
me too. It's all word of mouth.
Have to worry about it too much. I had a call today. A lady wanted to buy a gallon, but she's not going to like my gallon price because it's the same as my bottle price. So whatever 12 pounds is, hun, that's your price, $120 a gallon. So, and then they, without fail, they'll
price
say,
goes down, but not very fast.
They'll say, "Oh, well, I can order that on Amazon cheaper. Have fun.
Off you go."
Thanks for stopping by.
Wonderful day now.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I had a guy at work. He was buying it, and he said, "Oh, I should get a discount because I'm buying all this honey." I said, "I don't care if you buy it or not." And he kind of stood back. "What do you mean you don't care if I buy it or not?" I said, "Because someone else will buy it before I've run out."
Somebody standing behind you is going to.
Yeah, I'm not worried about your little.
You should know.
You bought 6 whole jars. Ooh,
you should know the answer to that, Bob. You're in sales. When he says, "I should get a discount for buying all this honey," you say, "Well, that is the discounted price."
Right. You should see what I charge the other guys.
That's already got your discount included.
Actually, it goes up in price because I know you. Because anybody that's ever been in sales, the biggest pain in the ass customers are your friends and relatives. Because they'll call you up and they're the ones that are going to complain to you. They're, let's face it, if I get something from the store and it's not quite what I expected or something, I'm not going back to Walmart. I'm not the guy going back to Walmart and say, "You know what? This juice wasn't what I thought it was going to be." It's just not me. And I think most people are like that. I'm not driving all the way back to Walmart because my $2 purchase sucked, right? I just won't buy that product again. But friends and family will make sure they go out of their way to tell you, "Oh, that honey I got from you last time, it got totally solid in the jar. So what do you want me to do about it? Heat it up." It's always something,
Hey guys, I got to duck out, man.
All right, Dan, appreciate you, brother.
Hey, Dan.
I'll talk to you guys later. Good talking to you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
I've always wondered why people buy honey and let it crystallize. I don't know why they don't eat it first.
Right. You bought it to sit it on your shelf, right?
Yeah.
That's your cream honey customer.
Well, you know, I was at the shop or the store the other day, and I was actually surprised how many bottles of honey were crystallized on the shelf.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it amazes me that they have a local section in our stores, and it's supposed to be stuff that's, you leaving, Ian? Yes, he is.
so
Looks like it. Bye, Ian.
He waved his hand. But we have this local section, and there's combed honey, and the combed honey is crystallized around the comb honey, right? So it's like chunk honey in the jar. And it's like, that's never going to sell. You're never going to decrystallize that without messing up the comb honey, probably. So it's, and the most amazing part is that the people they're buying it from don't come and check their shelves to at least take that off of the shelf, you know, because
that's
I could probably take that back to the house, heat it up, pull out the comb part of it, you know, save the jar, save the liquid honey that's in there.
Yeah,
but
it's a pain. But
Gus Mitchell had a little thing, a video on how he decrystallizes chunk honey. He says if you lay it on its side and you slowly bring it up to temperature, he has pretty good success with it. But he said if you leave it vertical, he said it just turns to mush. So
yeah, you get a piece of wax at the top like that. Been there.
Floating in the top.
Yeah.
I did that 1 year, and it just I don't know. I think people thought it was like floaties more than anything.
You know, I've done that at markets, and the only time I've ever done it is if I am harvesting some of that comb and I have a market in the next couple of days, and then I'll fill a few jars like that. Problem is I don't charge a premium. It's the same price as a liquid jar, and they sell out like that, no sweat.
Ooh.
But I don't want to make more of those than I'm going to sell in the next couple of days because it's going to granulate, and then it's a pain. But you're right, Bob. That's what I do with my stores. I go to a store and stock the shelf.
I don't know. Are you picking up my audio now?
Yeah, we can pick you up now.
Granulated in the store.
We could.
I'll pull it off and replace it.
Yeah, there was several there, but the store owner said that their customers understand and it doesn't bother them, so they didn't seem to care.
I think some do, because I had a big grocery store here. There were 4 1 kg jars sitting there on the shelf, and I was behind on my packing. I didn't have anything to replace them with, so I just left them there. By the time I did get product take into the store, they were gone. So I guess some customers love my honey enough and they know honey, so they thought, well, I'll just warm that up a bit.
But at the same time, though, a couple of the people like the winery and another place that contacted me. One of their complaints were that they were getting plastic bottles from people or from a particular vendor, and the honey was crystallizing really quickly in the bottles, and they thought that there was something wrong with the honey. Like, that's just called honey. But they felt that there was something wrong with the product because it was crystallizing. So, you know, some people realize it and some people don't, you know. I had an aunt that I gave honey, and she left it on the shelf and it crystallized over like 6 months, and she threw out half the jar, and I was like, why did you throw out half the jar? And she's like, because it crystallized. And I was like, well, yeah, that's going to happen.
That's honey.
So, yeah, I think that there's an education issue there when, you know, with some.
There certainly is. There certainly is. And there's a blurb on my label about that. You know, if you have granulation, it's normal. Just warm it up a bit.
Most people think if it crystallizes that you fed them sugar, and it's just sugar.
Some people will say that, yeah, which is unfortunate.
Have you seen those different things on, like, I don't have TikTok, but I've heard and seen some of these from other people that, you know, how you can tell if it's real honey, and they have all these ridiculous things that they're supposed to show what real honey is. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've never done the test, but half of them look like complete horseshit, to be honest. Because you're like,
see, those are real though, and that's why the food protection agencies spend millions and millions of dollars on equipment to test honey in the lab to see if there's adulteration. If they just did it at home and poured it in a jar of water and watched for a honeycomb pattern or some ridiculous thing like that, they could save all those millions of dollars.
They just need to spend it needlessly, right?
I'm kidding. That stuff is ridiculous. It's just more online stupidity is all it is.
What time is it? It's 10:02. I'll go a little bit longer because it's we haven't been 2 hours yet, but it's one of those things that I think we're constantly educating. And one other thing about the retail stores, though, unless you just happen to be at the honey aisle when you're stocking the shelves, you don't have much opportunity, I think, in a retail environment to educate the customer that much, right?
No.
Here, it's kind of unique because they pull up and they see the bees, right? So,
yeah.
And there's something to be said for that, and I say that because people don't question where my honey comes from. You know, it's like they may say, and I do get people that'll pull in the yard and say, did you make this honey? No, they did, right? I mean, it's like you don't see all those boxes. You know,
that's exactly what I say. I said, no, the bees made it. I just put it in a jar.
Yeah. and they don't see that, but it does. There is some gray area with that we've talked about, right? So, like, if I get honey or something from Sam that's right up the street from me, and I'm running short, and I bring it here and sell it, nobody questions whether that's my honey or not, right? Because they're here looking at the bees. I've never had that. Now, so it is kind of unique that even though, I mean, I had someone said, well, what do all the colors on the boxes mean? And I just said, it means that's the color of spray paint that I grabbed off the shelf, right? I mean, that's all it is. It's just, I grabbed those colors, right? So it's funny that people will ask, but they're asking questions that to us don't make really much sense.
It's interesting how, you know, a lot of the nuances, they're not sure what nuance means what, and so the color in the boxes, because you go in a yard and there's all kinds of different colors. Well, why is that, right? It's kind of like, well, that's because that color was on sale that day.
Right. That was
that was
on the Walmart aisle that week,
exactly.
Or something like that.
It's, well, why is that box like that and that one's bigger than that one? It's because I was at a trade show and that one was on sale cheap, so I bought it.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with honey.
Why do those have your name on it? Well, because I got a laser after I bought those boxes. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh,
or something like that.
Most people are good for a little chuckle like that. They think there's something profound, and it's just, it was awesome.
Yeah. Oh, the bee. I'm gonna have to create some crazy, unicorn under the magic tree, and I haven't seen Alex in a long time. So if you see Alex, and you
say hi to Alex,
put a comment on there and tell him to bring his behind back so we can ask him about his magic trees and unicorns. And I need to come up with some type of story about why my boxes are all different colors and stuff like that. And why did I laser my boxes? Oh, that's so the bees know that they live here, right? Or something. So we'll try to figure that one out.
That's right.
But Mark, what you been up to, man? You came in kind of late.
Yeah, just waiting for it to warm up a little bit so I can get in the bees.
Are you going to get some of these 70-degree days coming up?
Yeah, we're going to have a couple.
Is it supposed to rain like it is here when it gets that warm, or no?
Yep. I don't think we're going to get a steady rain. It's just going to be kind of here and there.
Right. Misting.
Maybe over can't remember, maybe overnight Thursday or something, and maybe clearing out Friday. But I don't think it's going to be too bad.
Skittles bees, that's it. Because they're chasing the rainbow. But we got almost 50% of our people away from their keyboard at the moment.
I think our rain's supposed to go to Sunday. Saturday or Sunday.
I think ours is running till then too. Let me see if I can pull it up.
I think I had some small colonies, so really small, that might not have made it through that cold.
It says I've got a 2-day warming trend. Let me see. So Wednesday, tomorrow, the high is 66. Thursday, 77. 77 degrees Thursday and no rain. So it's going to be, they're going to be flying like mad around here. And then it's going to, Friday is supposed to rain. Saturday is supposed to rain. And then it's starting to get cold again for the next few days. So it's going to be interesting.
I think we're going to have some more normal temps for our area next week. 50s in the day, maybe high 20s, low 30s at night.
Yeah, it's these swings this time of year for us are kind of crazy, but hopefully the bees start growing. That's what we want. But
yeah, I think I need to get some pollen on them bad.
Well, Cutic down here has already started pollen them up. Everything. I'm lagging behind. I've done it once, but I need to go back out and do it again. But it's been so cold, I haven't wanted to crack the tops on them at all. But I did today on one of them and took my first sting of 2024 on my wrist today.
Do you know how they're looking with the hive beetles and the patties?
I haven't had the patties that I've put on. I really haven't had much hive beetle action on them at all. I mean, I think I was lucky and put those bottom boards on and eliminated a lot of them. And then the hives that did have some beetles in, it seemed like the bees pushed them all up and had them corralled on top of the frame. So when I opened up and saw that, I just hive tool test them and killed most of them. So I'm not seeing that much in the way of hive beetles right now. But I haven't pulled frames out, right? I've only been open them up, put some feed on it, put it back, and that's it. I haven't torn them apart yet. So
maybe you knocked them down pretty good.
I'm hoping that's the case, but we'll see in the next little bit how many of them are probably going to make it and how many of them just totally didn't make it. But I'm not too worried about that, because the ones that didn't make it, that gives me plenty of food and resources that weren't eaten for my splits and building back up my other colonies, right? So I'm just trying to, I guess, look at a cups half full situation, right? Not going to focus too much on the losses, just more on what I'm trying to do this year and growing it.
Yeah, my experience, when those bees that survive really start to grow, and it's nice to have that drawn comb and stuff to go use on them.
Just pop it in the box and let them go.
Yeah.
See, Robert's daughter photobombing back there with the dance. You should have let her dance, man. You should have let her dance, and she would have not realized that she was all over the interwebs dancing in the background. That's funny. Let me see. Well, anyway, guys, we've been going for 2 hours and 2 minutes now, and it's a little bit after 10. I have work tomorrow, so I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream tonight.
That's 2 ugly words you done said tonight.
Work.
Taxes and work.
Taxes and work.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I wanted to thank James Knoll again for being a member for 20 months of the channel. I appreciate that. And, it really helps me out. Helps push me over the limit for the for the month a lot of times. And, you know, if you haven't subscribed to everybody up here on the screen, please do, or, you know, that have shown up tonight. You know, you know, that Ian guy, you guys probably never heard of him before. So go help him out and make sure you're subscribed to him.
Yeah, he's got a growing channel.
Yeah, he's got a growing channel.
Give him a like.
A fledgling channel. He needs all the help he can get.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys on the next stream. I guess Charlie's usually on here to tell us he'll be live on Friday. I assume he'll be live again this Friday, and Gunline on Saturdays. And we'll see you guys on the next live stream. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.